Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, welcome. This is our second lecture of audit. So, in the first lecture, I had covered the basic introduction for audit with regards to all the chapters that we have, how much weightage each chapter has, and what is the paper pattern, etc. So, if there is somebody who has not watched that video, it's a short 5 to 6 minute video, and this lecture will completely be in English, so it will be helpful for South students. And today we'll be discussing with SQC1. Okay, why isn't it going down? Okay, so this is your chapter wise breakup of how many marks come for each attempt. So if you've not watched that video, you can watch the first introduction to audit video. While studying, remember to read the words carefully. What does it say? SQC1 talks about quality control for firms that audit and review historical financial information and other assurances and related service engagements. What does this mean? That the firms who are conducting the audit, this standard is for them. This is applicable on them. To check quality control within their organization, you have to check whether the firm who is auditing the client, whether the firm itself has quality control systems or not. With quality with regards to what? Any assurance or any other related service engagement. This means that it is not just applicable to statutory audit, because it also includes other related service engagements. So what does it say? The QC system of a firm, that is the quality control system of a firm, shall include policies and procedures. PNP stands for policies and procedures. So it shall include policies and procedures addressing the following. That is, your firm should have certain policies and procedures about some points. So there are total eight types of policies and procedures that have been defined in this standard. Now the first one talks about leadership and responsibilities. So it says leadership responsibility with regards to that, who do we have to catch hold of to maintain the QC system in an organization? Who will it be? So the standard says that the CEO or the managing partners will assume the ultimate responsibility for the firm's QC system. That is, your managing partner will be ultimately responsible for ensuring that your firm has a good quality control system. The policy also talks about that the person responsible for QC system, he should be appropriate authority. That means the correct person should be chosen. He should have the ability and the experience relevant for managing a QC system. If you just put a fresher, someone who's just become a CA into into this role, he will not be able to do justice because he barely knows anything about it. So forget the quality control. So it should be, he should have relevant experience. Then second is ethical requirements. What is ethical requirements? Okay, remember that it says that they should have policies and procedures addressing the following. So it should have a policy and procedure addressing what exactly is ethical requirements. So integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional competence, and professional behavior. Oof, such huge words. Okay, we'll break them down. So ethical requirements talks about you should have policies and procedures with regards to integrity. Objectivity is what you want to achieve. What is your main objective? Integrity is a good intention. Confidentiality is keeping client information confidential, that is, you cannot share it with anybody else. Then there is your professional competence, that is, you are capable of doing this. And there is professional behavior. An auditor should always maintain a professional behavior. So that is, you should have policies about all of these. Now third is, you should have policies with regards to independence. What does this mean? Communication of independence requirements to personnel and identify threats. That is, your personnel, the people who are working in your organization, they should be able to read a policy and identify whether they are independent or not. That is, whether the client that they are working on, do they have any conflicting interest? Is there any threat which might make him not independent in the case that is, there will be conflicting interest. So the policy should clearly define it. Okay, so we have learned three policies up till now. So SQC1 says that you should have policies and procedures with regards to certain matters. There are 8 matters, out of that we have done 3. Okay, so close your eyes and try remembering So the first one that we did was about leadership responsibility. That is who is the person that will be ensuring that your quality control system is in place. So first is your leadership responsibilities. Okay. Now what was second? Second was with regards to ethical requirements. See, now I'm closing my eye. I'm trying to learn it with you. So your second was ethical requirements. Ethical requirements mein what was there? There was integrity, there was objectivity, independence was not there because independence is the third point. Then there was professional behavior, there was professional competence, correct, and there was confidentiality. Okay, now third is independence. Okay, so try closing your eyes and remember it by the order. These notes, if you want, you can order it from the website. The link will be given below. So you can get a hard copy as well as a soft copy. I will suggest you go for hard copy because you will get these notes in your hand. Standards are in black and white and the rest chapters are in colorful form. Okay, now these were the three. Now what is your fourth? Your fourth is with regards to client acceptance and continuance. What is client acceptance? Client acceptance is when you are taking a new client, when you are auditing a client for the first time, that is client acceptance. And when you have audited the client before in the previous audit year and you continue, that will be called client continuance. So what are the policies and procedures that you should do, or what are the procedures that you should check before accepting a client? So first you will have to identify the client, that is you will have to know his identity about everything, his business reputation, what is in the market, his client's operations, basically what he does, whether you have people, whether you have people capable of understanding these operations. And if the client does any inappropriate limitation of work, for example, your scope was this much, but the client says, no, you only have to check this. So that is, if you will have to decide whether the limitation of scope, is it justified or not. Maintaining low fee structure. If your client maintains low fee structure, you will definitely, your quality of work will also suffer. And this whole standard talks about quality. So this fees also plays an important part, and whether the client is involved in any money laundering. Okay, so what was first? First was your leadership responsibilities, correct? Then second was your ethical requirements. Third was your independence. What was fourth? Fourth we checked on right side top. That would be client acceptance and continuance. Okay, now we are studying the fifth point, that is human resource. So your firm should have a HR policy, your human resource policy. All companies have a HR policy, so your firm should also have a HR policy. You will have to remember the three C's, that your personnel, that is the personnel are the people working in your firm. These personnel should have commitment, they should be capable, and they should be competent. These are the three qualities that we need in a personnel. Okay, what is the 6.6 with regards to monitoring? You will have to monitor whether QC is relevant, adequate, and operating effectively. Relevant is whether the correct system has been put in place or not. Adequate is whether the system that has been put in place, is it capable of identifying and stopping threats that we have put it in for. And your last part is your operating effectively, whether all of the misstatements or any threats or any issue that should not be taking place, because of which we have implemented the QC, are they operating effectively. Okay, so okay, let's revise the 6 points again. Close your eyes. If you want, pause the lecture and try remembering it yourself. Okay, so I'm also closing my eyes and we'll remember it together. So on the top left was leadership responsibilities. Then what was your second point? Your second point was with regard to ethical something, ethical requirements. Okay, perfect. So your second was ethical requirements. Your third was independence. Okay, now we are done with the left side 3 points. Now we are on the right side. Right side top, right side top was client acceptance or continuance. Then your fifth point was with regards to HR. And your sixth point, what was the sixth point? Okay, 6 point with regards to monitoring, that we just did. Okay, so you and I both are learning at the same time. Now your seventh point, what does seven talk about? Your seventh is complaints and allegations, that is any complaints that have been raised against the firm. How are they dealt with? So there should be policy and procedure for complaints raised against the firm. Now your first point is dealing with failure to comply with QC PS and LNR. What is this? QC stands for quality control, PS stands for professional standards, LNR stands for law and regulation. So any, if the firm fails to comply with any of these, so your first point is with regards to when any complaints will be raised. This is what the first point talks about. Now your second point talks about who raises the complaint. That is whether someone within the organization or from someone outside the organization. That is whether the firm's personnel, firm's own employees, or any client or any third party has raised a complaint against the firm. Then third is investigation of complaint. That is who will investigate. So our first point was when is a complaint filed. Our second point was who files the complaint. Our third point is who is the person to whom the complaint is filed. Okay, so who is the person who is going to take action? Who is the authorized person who will investigate the complaint? So investigation of complaint or allegation supervised by person with proper authority and experience. He should have proper authority and he should have the relevant experience. And your last part is with regards to SA 230, that is your documentation of a complaint. If you receive any complaint, you will have to document it for future purpose. Our entire audit subject is based on documentation. So everywhere this is your SA 230. This we will be covering in our other YouTube videos. So I will be uploading all revision videos for all chapters. Now, so seventh was complaint, and your eighth is engagement performance. Engagement performance, what do you mean by engagement performance? That is, once you do the audit, it is called an engagement. So how have you performed? How well have you performed the audit? So you will have to check whether compliance with professional standards and laws and regulations have been complied with or not. Now this is of two parts. Your first is review and your second is engagement quality control review. So what all will you review? Whether work performed with reference to professional standards and laws and regulation, whether all of these have been complied with, has work been performed as per them. Now your second is whether work performed is in line with conclusion reached. That is, your work should support what conclusion you have drawn. The next is your NTE. What does NTE stand for? NTE stands for nature, timing, and extent of work performed to be revised. So, if in any case, if any facts that you get to know during the audit, whether your NTE needs to be revised. The next is your SAAE. Your SAAE is a very common short form. It stands for sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So you will have to review your audit evidence. What is your last part? Significant matters raised for further considerations. Any significant matters that were raised, that where we need to look deeper, we will have to review those. Okay, now what does engagement QC review? So that is evaluation of firm's independence. Remember, our third point was also independence here. Our first point is also independence here. Then a significant risks identified and its responses. Any risk that we had identified and how we dealt with, how have we responded to it. Communication with TCWG, this is SA 260. And management. You will have to review how you communicate with the TCWG and management. Consultation with reference to difference of opinion. When you feel that one opinion is suitable, whereas the client feels that you should be giving another opinion. So this is your difference of opinion. And your last part is audit documentation. That is again SA 230. So look, this is the first reference of SA 230 in the same standard. This is your second. So work performed, audit evidence obtained, and any conclusions reached. All of this needs to be documented in audit. If you don't know the answer, if you can't remember 5 words. One is your professional skepticism. One is your any audit documentation, any risk of material misstatement. Then there is your professional judgment, and your fifth is your confidentiality. Put these words, even if you're not understanding, make your answer and put these 5 words in your answer. Okay. And I was showing you the the notes of other chapters. So this is how we've done for other chapters. So if you're planning on doing other chapters too, if you're watching this video right now, remember to watch other videos so that you can cover your other audits also. This whole notes are covered in about 100 pages. Make sure to learn them. Great. I'll see you in the next class.